Alright, welcome back everybody. Part 2. We're doing a beautiful lighthouse here in Rockland, Maine. We're in the studio. Part 1 was a lot of fun. Part 1 in this series, we basically did a nice contour drawing of this scene. And we used a reference photograph. So this is our reference photograph. And in part 1, if you haven't seen part 1, please go back. You should be able to find that real easy. Just you type in the same title in YouTube, and you'll see the other part 1. So part 1, we discussed how the main goal of this lighthouse was to simplify it from this photograph to our painting. A lot of times it can be really a challenge as a watercolor artist with details as far as your style. Like here on our channel, we paint loosely, we have fun, we splash. We're not concerned about like getting every detail exact. So you know, I know you're following my channel because you want to paint in a more loose fashion, a more carefree fashion. So that's what we do here. So when we're thinking as watercolor artists, tell me if this makes sense, we want to simplify things, because when we simplify things, it actually forces us to paint loosely and more carefree. Because if we just say to ourselves, well, I have 3 weeks to do this painting, we might find ourselves doing way too much detail, and as well, we won't have a flow to the painting. So basically, when you're doing a painting, you can do a painting any way you like. You're the artist. You choose how you want to paint your painting and how you want to draw, and you can do you can mix techniques and anything you really want to. Your freedom is unlimited as an artist. But for this like style and technique, the main focus is really trying to simplify things and get things completed in a pretty brief fashion, where we're not spending hours and hours and hours trying to complete something. We want to get it done quickly, and when we get it done more quickly and in a faster fashion, it translates into the loose look that we're looking for. So if we're moving through a painting in a quick fashion, in a good pace, and saying to ourselves we only have an hour or 2 to complete the drawing and the painting, then we're going to work at a quicker pace, and all the brush strokes are going to be sort of in a quicker fashion when we're painting. And then we're going to have a harmonized look to our painting, because we've done it with the same mindset as we want it, the same mindset of painting it quickly, painting it, expeditiously. So if we were to like paint this painting over a 2 or 3 or 4 day period or a week, we might at one time sit down and be rushed because we have to do something, so we're going to paint something really fast over here. And then we might sit down maybe, I don't know, a day or 2 later, and we have much more time and we're carefree and we have nothing to worry about, nothing on the agenda. And then we might, go real slow on this section of the painting. And the next thing you know, our painting becomes all like disharmonious, because we've painted it at different paces and in a different mindset. So if we can just sit down and say, you know what, 2 hours at tops I'm going to do this, or 1 hour tops, and we have that time blocked out and we go in and do it, we're set. So that's kind of the mindset behind painting loosely and carefree, and that's just not letting ourselves get sidetracked from what the goal is. So the goal is we want a uniform looking painting that's got all of the same technique being used. So if we're sitting down again and doing something real quick for 10 minutes over here, and then sitting down for an hour or 2 or 3 doing this section of the painting, you will see that in the painting, and it's going to look incompatible in a sense. So my main point here again was to let's try to get everything done in like an hour or 2 if we can, or 3. But painting in the same kind of style, just getting in there and putting down the washes. And so that's what we did on our first video. We sketched everything out, and then we got in there and we did our first washes of paint, which were the darks first, and then we started working in our middle tones, the greens, and we did some sky and some water. So now in part 2, we're essentially going to do the final details of the painting. And this is the fun part, because you can go slow here. Once you're to the point on your painting when you're like 75-80% complete, then it's fun time. It's even more fun than doing the first part of the painting, because now you can really take your time and no one's going to notice it if you're taking a longer amount of time to do some details, because it's only very small parts of the painting, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? So when we're doing like a small window here or there, or some railings, or some details on this dock over here, or this catwalk going up to the lighthouse, that's no big deal, because it's just a very minor part of the painting, and no one's really going to notice if we took a lot of time to do these details at the very finish of the painting. We also have a couple figures that we're going to do. So let's start doing our final details, and maybe I'll start with up top. So I'll use some of the paint that we had left on the palette, because it's fine. I can reactivate it. So I just reactivated some of the darker darks, the burnt umber, cadmium red, burnt umber. I keep a tissue on hand. And we'll put in some details of the top portion of the lighthouse. Just some quick details here. That's fine. There's an angle there. A couple angles. Okay. Okay, and then we have some railings here, so we can do some nice quick carefree brush strokes here, just doing the railings. Nothing fancy, I'm going fast. And there is a large shadow, so I'm going to go in with some purple, mineral violet, maybe darken it up a little bit. And we'll do that dark shadow there. It's darker up here, so add a little bit more burnt umber and French ultramarine blue. French ultramarine blue, burnt umber. Okay, we have a little more shadowing under here, so let's do a quick shadow up there. We have a darker shadow on the top of the window here, here, and here. And also here we have then I see some here. I'll go into some of that green we had mixed for the mountains in the back. I'll add a little bit of burnt umber to that and some French ultramarine blue. And in the picture it looks like a dark greenish brown for the windows, so they might be shuttered. No problem if it's too dark. You can always lighten it up quickly with a tissue. So that's like a dark olive green kind of look. And then over here we had some slats of siding here. There was some darker some trim there, and a bit of a shadow, and then maybe a chimney over here. So I'm just getting a little bit of detail, and I'm going to use a little bit of white paint also. So here you'll see we're just doing the darkest darks of the details. There is a little bit of shadowing there. Some there. I'm going to use, again, a little bit of white paint to put a few shadows in. I saw over here. Okay, and then, but what we do want to avoid is going too much more on this part of the painting. So we're pretty much, the details are pretty complete here on the lighthouse and the adjacent building attached to the lighthouse. But we do want to do some of the figures. So I'm going to do some figures here, some cadmium red for the, and so I'll mix up a little bit of cadmium red and yellow ochre. So for the faces, and then I'm going to a little bit of cerulean blue. A little bit of cerulean blue for the maybe some jeans. And over here too we have a couple more figures. So. Then we can go in and I'm putting some blue indications for maybe some blue jeans, and maybe maybe we'll do a little red shirt over here. So that's pretty good. Just some minor indications of figures here. And let's do a little bit of yellow ochre. So a little bit of yellow ochre along this the sandy area here across the way. I wouldn't fill it all in. I would leave some white paper there, but just some yellow ochre to give it that feel of sand and warmth. I think it's important here to level the top of this building somewhat because I rushed it a little bit there and through this building area. So maybe we could make that building a little bit more. And a couple more bushes maybe here and there. Okay, so now we're really getting things pretty good as far as the details. We're gonna do a little more with let's do some work over here with these look like some floating docks maybe. So we'll work on these a little bit. We can add a little bit of paint to those if we want, white paint. There's some shadowing underneath these in the water. And then we'll do some more blue. And I'm paying attention to the shadows. And again, don't feel like you have to do every single thing you see in the photograph. Pick and choose some things you like in the photograph that you want to keep, and then you delete out things you don't think are necessary. Because, like we said, when we looked at this photograph in the beginning, it had so many details. You know, it's really, you have to pick and choose the details. So here we can see, you know, there's more figures on that raft, or those docks there. There was a lot more figures on the top of that concrete abutment wall for the foundation of the lighthouse. There's a lot more figures there. We kind of made just a few on one and both sides, just a few figures. There's quite a few more there. There's quite a few figures up on top of the lighthouse area. We left those out. We just left them, left that top of the lighthouse with no figures. And then again, here in the distance, we didn't. There's some people on the beach there. That's something you would, you know, leave out because they're so fine. And there's also a jetty that comes out to this lighthouse, and I didn't put that in. And so you can see I didn't put the houses in the hills so much. So you have to pick and choose certain things that you want to keep in the painting and certain things you want to kind of remove because it's going to be way too much information. So again, we're simplifying. That's how we do it. We pick a few things we like, we keep them in the painting, and then the rest we just don't worry about it. And it's a much more fun time to paint when we're not worried about, you know, too many small, minute details that keep us from painting loosely and having fun. And let's so here I'm going to do some water. Just some water indications, just moving the brush the way the water goes, kind of flowing and moving. These areas here are in shadow, so I don't want any. I'm trying to remove those white paper marks there. Okay, there's some. I'll make up some more dark burnt umber, French ultramarine blue. And we're going to make some rock formation here, some of the places where the rocks are abutting each other. So just a couple quick indications of those sharp lines that we have in the rocks is enough information that we feel like it really does look like rocks at the base of the lighthouse. And then we'll do the same thing. We'll add a little bit of those underneath where the concrete blocks are. There's some shadowing. So we'll put some of those in. I would do them quick. We have the pencil lines underneath, so that really helps us quite a bit. We have the pencil lines underneath, so we can just trace along those with our brush. And we just trace over the top with our paintbrush, the pencil lines. Maybe not every single one, but... And then we pretty much capture the feel for that. And I think we need just a little bit of some orange and red in the water. And a little bit of the cadmium red in the water. It kind of got diluted with the when I did the first wash. So I just want to make sure I get a little more of that cadmium red into the water. Makes it more believable, that reflection under there. And I can also use some... Alright, so now we're looking really good. We're pretty much, all the details are pretty complete now. Let's do just a few more. I'm going to get that footbridge going up. Again, I'm tracing over the lines that I did with the pencil, with the brush, the paintbrush, with just a little bit of our mixture of burnt umber, French ultramarine, and alizarin crimson a little bit. Alright, that is really the only thing I think now. I'm going to use just a tiny bit of titanium white. With some yellow ochre mixed in. Occasionally I'll add some titanium white, and so I just added a little bit of so I put some yellow ochre in the titanium white. A little bit on the brush. And then just in just a few spots, a little bit of light to you can do this if you have in your picture a lot of like lights where to try to paint them by leaving white paper it would be too difficult. So here there's some railings up top. So here I can get those railings in, which make this look more interesting and true to life, because this is up top here. We have the railings that are on the top of the concrete blocks. So I'm going to put the railings up. If you need to add a little bit of water to your titanium white, so I added a little bit of water to my titanium white and a little bit of yellow ochre mixed in there. And then I just tap off a little bit on a tissue just so I don't have too much. And then we can do the railing all the way across here. Looks fantastic. We can also, I noticed here, I missed that gable when I painted it. There's a highlight there, so we can get a few highlights. Just a very few, a couple more here. And I think maybe now those little tiny touches of titanium white with a little yellow ochre mixed in there to just take the edge off of that bright white. It's not going to cause an issue at all with the overall look of the painting, so no worries. I know some people don't like to do that, to do any additional white to their paintings, and that's fine. It really is just, I think it just adds a little bit of extra touches of light into the picture that make it a little better, because of the details of how many details are in this painting. But most times I don't really use a lot of white. But in this painting, again, it's every painting's different, and when you want to capture a couple extra details if you need to, I think it's okay to do it. Or if there's a problem with something, to go over with white. So here were some sills that were on the windows. Now what this does too, this actually, this gives the picture that real authentic look. So if this was in the same location where this lighthouse is located, someone would really appreciate those little extra details that are in the painting, because they've seen maybe this picture or this scene many, many times. The extra details would ring true to them and they would appreciate that. Whereas if someone never saw this before, in a painting, like if you were to put this, in a gallery and someone would buy it and they never saw the actual location, they wouldn't worry too much about how big this mountain is in the back or if there's white railings across. So again, you can adjust your paintings according to how you feel you want that final result to look. But I think this is a final finished painting now. We've added all the details, and this is, pretty much finished. And we took about an hour and a half to do it. So if you haven't seen part one, please go back. Part one's really important. We go over the beginning part of the painting, and then of course now we did the details. And I know on part one it might not have shown all of the work I did, but this was basically just the mountains I did with sap green and French ultramarine blue with a little bit of burnt umber mixed in to get kind of a olivey green. And then for the sections over here, I used cadmium lemon yellow to get these sections here.